She said that everything would be fine between us, until I found her correspondence with her lover. Audrey always had a way with words. Her voice, soft and reassuring, could calm any storm. Over the past few months, our relationship had hit rough patches, but every time I started to worry, she would look at me with those deep blue eyes and say, "Shane, everything's going to be fine. We'll get through this." And for a while, I believed her. I wanted to believe her. We'd been together for almost 3 years, and while we had our ups and downs, I thought we were solid. Sure, there were times when Audrey seemed distant, a little more preoccupied with her phone than usual, but I chalked it up to work stress. She worked as a graphic designer for a boutique firm, and deadlines often had her glued to her laptop or texting clients late into the night. I didn't think much of it at first. We trusted each other. We had to. Trust was the foundation of everything. Or so I thought. It was a Friday night when the first crack appeared in the perfect facade. Audrey had left for a weekend work retreat in the mountains with her colleagues. I figured it would be a good chance for her to unwind, and honestly, for me to get some space. Our arguments had become more frequent lately, mostly about little things, me being home late from work, her avoiding certain conversations. But every time, she would assure me, "We're fine." That night, I was hanging out with my friend Winston at a local bar. Winston was the guy I went to when I needed to vent or just unwind after a long week. He had a knack for knowing when something was off, and I guess I wasn't hiding it well that night. "You all right, Shane? You've been distracted the whole time we've been here," he said, his brow furrowed in concern. "Yeah, man. Just tired, I guess," I lied. "Audrey's away for the weekend, and we've just been. I don't know, distant." Winston gave me a look, the kind that said he wasn't buying it but wouldn't push too hard. "Look, relationships go through phases. Maybe this retreat will give you both some time to breathe." I nodded, appreciating his attempt to be optimistic. I knew I needed to trust her, to believe that what she said was true. But something about the way she'd been lately, her phone always face down, the late-night texts, left a gnawing feeling in my gut. The next day, I was at home alone, trying to catch up on work, but I couldn't focus. Audrey hadn't texted me all morning, which was unusual for her. Normally, she would send a quick message to let me know how things were going, even if she was busy. I shrugged it off, trying to convince myself that she was just caught up in work. But then, in a moment of weakness, I did something I had never done before. Audrey had left her laptop at home. I stared at it for a good 5 minutes, fighting the urge to invade her privacy. I wasn't the kind of guy who checked his partner's devices. We trusted each other, right? But the more I thought about it, the more that uneasy feeling in my gut grew. I didn't plan to snoop. I just needed some reassurance that everything really was okay between us. I opened her laptop and hesitated, feeling guilty already. But my curiosity won. Her email was open. I wasn't sure what I was expecting, but as I scrolled through her inbox, one thread caught my eye. The name, Emily. Except, Emily wasn't someone I knew. Audrey had never mentioned her. And the subject lines, they were vague, like they were trying to be discreet. "Last night was perfect, can't stop thinking about you, when can we meet again?" I clicked on one of the emails, my heart pounding in my chest as I read the words on the screen. "I miss you already. Last night felt like magic. I'll find a way to see you again soon. We just have to be careful. Shane can't know." My hands shook as I scrolled through more of their correspondence. Each email was worse than the last, long, emotional confessions of love, longing, and the thrill of sneaking around behind my back. Emily, it turned out, wasn't an Emily at all. It was a man. And Audrey was pouring her heart out to him. I felt sick. My whole body went numb as I pieced together what had been happening. Audrey hadn't been distant because of work stress. She hadn't been avoiding conversations because of a busy schedule. She had been lying to me, telling me everything was fine while sneaking around with someone else, someone she cared about enough to hide for months. My mind was racing. How long had this been going on? How could she look me in the eyes every day and tell me we were fine, while she was falling for someone else behind my back? I wanted to confront her right then and there, but she was still at the retreat. I sat there, staring at the screen, my world crashing down around me. I closed the laptop and leaned back in my chair, my mind spinning. The words I had just read burned in my brain, each one a dagger. Audrey, the woman I thought I knew better than anyone, had been lying to me for months. And not just lying, living a double life, sneaking around behind my back, all while telling me everything between us would be okay. I couldn't stay in that apartment. The walls felt like they were closing in on me. Grabbing my keys, I headed out, not even sure where I was going. I needed air, needed to think. I drove aimlessly for what felt like hours, my hands gripping the steering wheel tighter with every passing mile. I replayed every conversation Audrey and I had had over the last few months, looking for signs. I couldn't believe I had missed it all. How could I have been so blind? The late nights, the distance, the way she had always made sure her phone was out of sight when I was around, it all made sense now. By the time I pulled into Winston's driveway, I was exhausted, emotionally and physically. I hadn't planned to come here, but I didn't know where else to go. I couldn't face Audrey, not yet. I needed to get my head straight before I did something I'd regret. Winston opened the door, immediately sensing that something was wrong. "Shane, man, you okay?" he asked, concern etched across his face. I stepped inside, shaking my head. "No," I muttered. "I'm not." We sat down in his living room, and I told him everything, about Audrey, the emails, the lies. As the words spilled out of me, I felt the weight of it all come crashing down. Winston listened quietly, not interrupting, just letting me vent. When I was done, there was a long silence before he finally spoke. "Damn, Shane. I'm really sorry, man. I can't believe she'd do that." "Yeah, well," I said bitterly, "neither can I." Winston leaned forward, his expression serious. "What are you going to do?" That was the question I had been avoiding. What was I going to do? Part of me wanted to confront her right away, to call her out on her lies and demand answers. But another part of me was just numb. I didn't know if I had the strength to face her yet. I wasn't ready for her excuses, her explanations. I wasn't ready to hear why she had chosen someone else over me. "I don't know," I admitted, my voice barely a whisper. "I don't know what to do." Winston put a hand on my shoulder. "Look, man, take your time. Don't rush into anything. You deserve to hear her side of the story, but on your terms. You're not obligated to make any decisions right now." He was right, but that didn't make it any easier. The thought of confronting Audrey, of hearing her try to justify what she had done, made me feel sick. But I knew I couldn't avoid it forever. The next day, Audrey came home from the retreat. I had spent the night at Winston's place, trying to figure out my next move. By the time I walked through the door of our apartment, she was already there, unpacking her things. When she saw me, her face lit up with a smile, like nothing had changed. "Hey, babe. You're back early," she said, coming over to give me a quick kiss on the cheek. But I pulled away, and the smile immediately faded from her face. "Shane. What's wrong?" she asked, her eyes searching mine. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. "We need to talk," I said, my voice cold. Audrey's expression shifted, nervous, unsure. "About what?" I walked over to the kitchen table and sat down, motioning for her to do the same. "I know, Audrey," I said bluntly, my hands clenched into fists on the table. "I know about the emails. I know about him." Her face went pale. She didn't say anything for a moment, just stared at me, her eyes wide with shock. "Shane. I don't know what you're talking about. Don't lie to me, Audrey. I snapped, my voice louder than I intended. I found the emails. I know about Emily. I know he's not who you said he was. Her mouth opened and closed, but no words came out. She looked like she was struggling to find something to say, but whatever explanation she had, it wasn't going to be enough. I trusted you, I continued, my voice shaking with anger. All this time, I trusted you, and you've been lying to me. How long, Audrey? How long have you been sneaking around with him? Tears filled her eyes, and she finally spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. It's not what you think. Then tell me what it is, I demanded, my patience running thin. Because from where I'm sitting, it looks exactly like what I think it is. Audrey wiped at her tears, her hands trembling. It started a few months ago, at work. We were just talking at first. I didn't mean for it to happen, Shane. I never wanted to hurt you. But you did, I said, my voice cold. You did hurt me. You lied to me. You told me everything was fine between us, and all this time, you've been running off with him. Do you even love me anymore? Her silence was deafening. The silence that followed my question was unbearable. Audrey's eyes were still wet with tears, but she couldn't bring herself to answer. That silence, her hesitation, spoke louder than any words she could have said. My heart sank as I realized the truth. Do you love him? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper now, as though I was afraid of her answer. She looked down at her hands, avoiding my eyes. I don't know, she finally said, her voice cracking. It wasn't supposed to happen like this. I wasn't supposed to feel anything for him, but it got complicated. The weight of her words crushed me. Audrey, the woman I thought I would spend the rest of my life with, had feelings for someone else. And she had been hiding it from me for months, pretending like everything was fine. It felt like a betrayal so deep, I didn't know if I could ever forgive her. Why didn't you just tell me? I asked, my voice shaking. If you were unhappy, if you didn't feel the same way anymore, why didn't you just talk to me? We could have worked through it, Audrey. We could have tried to fix things. She wiped her tears with the back of her hand and finally looked up at me. I didn't want to lose you, she admitted, her voice barely audible. I know that sounds messed up, but I still care about you, Shane. I didn't know how to handle what I was feeling. I didn't want to hurt you, but I was scared of being honest because I didn't want to lose you. Guess what? I said, bitterness creeping into my voice. You hurt me anyway. Her face crumpled, and she broke down, her sobs filling the silence between us. I wanted to feel something, anger, rage, maybe even pity, but I was numb. The betrayal had cut too deep. I wasn't sure if there was anything left between us worth saving. I didn't mean for it to go this far, she said through her tears. I swear. I didn't mean for any of this to happen. I stared at her, the woman I had loved for so long, and wondered how everything had gone so wrong. The woman sitting across from me wasn't the same Audrey I had fallen in love with. Or maybe she was, and I had just been blind to who she really was all along. I stood up from the table, the weight of the situation pressing down on my shoulders. I can't do this right now, I said, my voice hollow. I need to get out of here. Shane, wait, please, she begged, reaching for me, but I stepped back, out of her reach. I don't know if we can fix this, I said, my voice flat. I don't know if I even want to. Her face crumpled as fresh tears fell. I don't want to lose you, she whispered, her voice breaking. I stared at her for a moment, the woman I thought I knew better than anyone. But after everything I had discovered, I realized I didn't know her at all. Maybe I never had. Without another word, I turned and walked out of the apartment, closing the door behind me. I didn't know where I was going or what I was going to do next, but I knew one thing for certain, the life I had known was over. Audrey had shattered my trust, and I wasn't sure if I could ever pick up the pieces. The next few days passed in a blur. I stayed at Winston's place again, and though he tried to cheer me up, there was no escaping the emotional wreckage that had become my life. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Audrey, her face, her tears, her betrayal. The emails between her and the other man replayed in my mind like a broken record, each word cutting deeper than the last. I knew I had to confront her again. As much as I wanted to walk away and leave it all behind, I couldn't ignore the fact that we had built a life together. We shared more than just memories, there was a future we had once envisioned. But that future seemed impossible now. I went back to the apartment a few days later, unsure of what I was going to say or do. Audrey was sitting on the couch when I walked in, her face pale and drawn. She looked like she hadn't slept in days, and the guilt in her eyes was unmistakable. "Shane," she said softly, standing up as soon as she saw me. "I'm so sorry. I know that doesn't fix anything, but I need you to know how much I regret everything." I stood there, unsure of what to feel. I had spent so long trying to make sense of it all, and I still didn't have any answers. "Do you still love me?" I asked, cutting straight to the heart of the matter. She hesitated, and my chest tightened. "I do," she said finally, her voice trembling. "But I know I've messed everything up. I've ruined us." I nodded slowly. "Yeah, you have." Tears welled up in her eyes again, but this time I didn't feel sorry for her. I didn't feel anything. "Shane, please," she said, stepping closer to me. "I want to try to fix this. I'm willing to do whatever it takes. I'll cut him out of my life. I'll do anything. Just, don't leave me." I stared at her, feeling torn. Part of me wanted to believe her, wanted to hold on to the hope that we could somehow repair what had been broken. But the other part of me knew that some things, once shattered, could never be put back together. "I don't know, Audrey," I said, my voice quiet but firm. "I don't know if I can ever trust you again." Her face fell, and she looked at me with a mixture of desperation and sorrow. "I'll prove it to you," she whispered. "I'll prove that I can change, that we can still be us." But as I stood there, watching her fall apart, I realized something. Even if she did change, even if she cut him out of her life, the damage was done. Our relationship had been built on trust, and once that trust was gone, what was left? "I need time," I said finally. "Maybe we can figure this out, but not right now. I need space." Audrey nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I understand." Without another word, I turned and walked out of the apartment, my heart heavy with the weight of everything we had lost.